The birds came back. I can hear them again. I know how to drown out the noise. I'll have to listen to none other than Wolf Blitzo. Wolf Blitzo, my favorite furry OC. How are we doing? Trump is unable to make $464 million bond. Well, that is a lot of money.
And we're following breaking news just coming into CNN right now. Attorneys for former President Donald Trump say they're unable to get a bond to pay the $464 million fraud judgment, calling it, and I'm quoting now, a practical impossibility. CNN's Kara Scannell is joining us from New York right now. Kara, what can you tell us? Walk us through what this means.
So Trump's lawyers have informed the appeals court today that they are unable to get anybody, an insurance company, an underwriter, to help them post this bond, the $454 million.
What insurance company would front $500 million for that? Are you for Trump, the guy who doesn't pay his contractors? You kidding me?
Trump alone, the rest to cover his sons. And what they say is that they've approached 30 insurance underwriters, some of these big, gigantic companies that you know, and they say that none of them are willing to do it. As you said, they're calling it a practical impossibility.
How do I do this?
You know, one of the reasons that
I
they
was hitting the wrong
say is
button.
an issue here is that some of these insurance companies have internal limits that they won't issue a bond for more than $100 million. And some of the biggest names that you can think of in the insurance world also will not underwrite a bond and take property, which is what Trump has to put up. They want cash. They want security.
Everyone furiously going back in the VOD. Good luck, soldiers.
Stocks, bonds, something that is what's a liquid, easy to sell asset. They don't want property. And so that is the problem that Trump has run into in trying to come up with this massive amount of money, $500 million.
Yeah, look at this. It's actually pretty goddamn, it's actually pretty funny. Spurned by 30 companies as he seeks bond at $454 million. Do you have any idea how bad it looks that he's like former president scrounging around for that money? Oh my God. This is very, very recent news too. Like a lot of these stories are coming out within the past hour. I wonder if somebody's going to swoop in and save him. Mr. Trump has asked the appeals court to pause the judgment or accept a bond of only $100 million. Oh, do you think they're going to collect? Everyone needs to go to their all of the New York Trump properties with a big like IKEA bag for the fire sale.
You know, these bond companies, too, they also want their own, I guess you could call it, insurance on it. They want extra money than just what the bond is so that they can, cover this as it plays out. This bond is to stop the New York Attorney General's office from seizing the property while the appeal of the judgment and the case goes forward.
Couldn't he start selling property? Well, that's what he wants to avoid doing, right? Because that would just be essentially the state taking it. Also, he wouldn't be able to get liquid, money from selling his properties within the incredibly short time that he has.
So they've been asking the Trump's team has been asking the appeals court to allow them to not have to post this bond until the appeal is over. They're saying that Trump has properties that are worth more than the judgment in this case. It's just something that the insurance companies won't take. So they're saying that
more than a $500 million. You got that just in your back pocket? Is that true? Is that it's hysterical that he would say that, considering the reason this fraud case happened is because he over-evaluated his properties. So for him to have to post $500,000 in bond over it, and for him to be like, wait, I have many billions of properties worth billions and billions, when that's already what he's in trouble for. Trying to get out of the $500 million bond by putting forward a $13 million penthouse and say yeah, this is $500 million. Here you go.
The Attorney General's team will be able to collect on this judgment if it stands, and they could do so by seizing some of the properties, which the Attorney General's office said they're ready to do. But they're still asking the appeals court here for more time, and that's why we're seeing this new information come out today, saying they're unable to post the bond of this magnitude. They can't get anyone to underwrite it because it is just a large amount, and particularly a large amount for one individual. Well,
so, Kara, what comes next in this process?
So now it is before the appeals court. There's been
I need this to happen. He has wormed his way out of a lot of shit, but emotionally, I really, really need this shit to happen, okay? I need his shit to get seized by the government so badly. I need this more than anything else, anything in my life. I would give up water for this, okay? I need this.
on this. It's up to this New York State Appeals Court to decide whether to allow Trump to move forward with the appeal and stop the Attorney General's office from seizing properties, to give them this time to have the court case play out. If the court says that Trump does not get this stay, Trump's side is asking them to allow them to put their ruling on hold so they can appeal to the highest appeals court in New York State. Those will be decisions for the New York Appeals Court to decide. And of course, the New York Attorney General's office has opposed this. They want the appeals court to allow them to enforce the injunction now if Trump cannot post that bond. Well,
please don't wait on the appeal. It'll take so long. I want his shit to get repossessed now. I want them to be scraping the letters off of the Trump Tower and melting them down for scrap and counting them for the cost of the raw steel and brass and everything. Please, I want it. I want it so badly.
All right, Kara, we'll stay in close touch with you. We'll see what happens. A significant development indeed.
Renato, let's start with you because you've represented and prosecuted large real estate developers before. What happens if they can't get a bond?
If they can't get a bond, collection efforts go forward, which first of all can be expensive. Okay, there's a court process where the New York Attorney General is going to be trying to collect that judgment, could potentially put liens on properties, essentially entering that order into various other proceedings, for example. So that would potentially be an issue for Trump. If he's already got his real estate highly encumbered with loans and so on, having to deal with collection efforts and pay attorneys to fight off collection efforts is yet another problem that he doesn't want to have to deal with.
And his attorneys say that he approached 30 underwriters to back the bond. Does that make sense to you that they would all say no?
Well, in my experience, real estate developers tend to be very highly illiquid. They tend to be highly leveraged. They tend to have all sorts of loans. They might have a revolving line of credit. They may have various loans and personal guarantees out there. However, what I will say is that this is not a complete surprise to Donald Trump. It's not like the New York Attorney General.
It's literally cheaper for Trump to dodge debts than pay them at this point. Well, Trump is literally running out the clock. First of all, Trump is going to die soon. He's not exactly young. And second of all, if Trump becomes president, this all becomes moot. With the way the Republican Party's been acting lately, him becoming president would basically be the end of his financial troubles because he could use his political power to shield him from basically anything. That might not be the way the law is supposed to work, but that is the way he would use it. And he would be able to use it to that effect pretty effectively. He's running out the clock here. The only chance to harm Trump legally is before he becomes president, if he is going to become president.
Case happened over the course of minutes. It happened over the course of years. And Trump could anticipate a potential judgment. And the fact that he hasn't prepared by refinancing and selling properties and so on suggests that he may be less wealthy than he is prepared.
Yeah, because he can't sell his properties because he would still keep the loans. He's been running on gas for ages. Why do you think the GOP has been paying for his legal bills to the extent that they have? He does not have liquid cash at all. He might have properties that he's overrepresented the value of, but he's leveraging them on so many things that he can't just get rid of them, he's effectively he's running the real estate mogul equivalent of 50 mortgages. It's ridiculous. If all this stuff got taken by the government, he wouldn't have nothing. He would have significantly less than nothing. In all likelihood, he would have hundreds of millions or billions of dollars less than nothing. Because all of that leveraging that he's done, it wouldn't go away. And he's not able to leverage anymore, it seems, and nobody's willing to bail him out. It's a gigantic house of cards that he's been stacking for decades, and he can't alter it anymore. If he adds any more to it or if he takes anything more away from it, it all falls apart. I need this to happen.
Himself to be.
Oh, on that note, thank you for teeing up Kristen Holmes, who covers the Trump campaign for us. Kristen, you know very well that a big part of Donald Trump's identity is how wealthy he is. And the idea that he can't pay this money, it wouldn't be out of this world for you or I or most normal people. Not
Saudis and Russians. So there are problems with the idea of Donald Trump just getting money to bail this out. First of all, Donald Trump is obviously corrupt, but there are always limits. And I think that even for Trump and the GOP, if he suddenly received $500 million from an anonymous source right before, or I don't even think it could be anonymous, right? Because the money would have to be like the disclosure of the money, considering how much financial scrutiny he's under, like it would be known who gave him that money. If it was from some Saudi or Russian like shell company or whatever, like there are points where it gets so shady that it would be a political liability even to Donald Trump, as I understand it, you know? And you also have to factor in the ego, right? Donald Trump and his team has been looking for loans to cover the bond, not for just full payment, right? It would interfere with Donald Trump's image as a self-made man to literally get bailed out by another wealthy person. It wouldn't matter, they don't care. Some people would care, and it would matter to some people. But I think a lot of it is just it would make him look weak. Yeah, it would make him look weak, you know?
To pay $500 million and not to have that lying around in our bank account. But it might be different when it comes to how Donald Trump thinks he's perceived.
Yeah, and Dan, I just want to start by saying that you should know that there are a lot of Trump allies who watch your show, and they've been texting me with the argument of, one, most billionaires are not liquid. This is not that surprising. The other argument saying this is about the insurance companies, this insane amount, this is their words.
Yeah, but most billionaires are capable of leveraging their assets in order to cover the a loan to help them pay, right? Like, yeah, most billionaires don't have billions in liquid cash they keep in the bank, but it's pretty unusual for a billionaire to be turned down by 30 loan agencies.
Not mine. In terms of the bond, these insurance companies can't get that much money, that much collateral. So there is an argument here among Trump world. But as you know, Donald Trump himself has painted himself, his entire image, not just politically, but also before that, his brand on being a billionaire. And that is why this case was so personal for him in the first place, was the idea that everything he had built was essentially on a lie, it was fraudulent, that he wasn't really this rich, that he had inflated those numbers. That's why you saw him so fascinated and so intent on being part of this case, sitting in that courtroom, listening to these various witnesses, because it is to his personal brand. It also goes to his political brand. This idea that I built myself up as a billionaire and I could do that for you too goes away if you can't afford to pay this kind of money.
And let me just go back to Renato on this.
I wish she would also add that it's pretty fucking uncommon for somebody as wealthy as Donald Trump supposedly is to not be able to leverage their assets to cover this, you know?
Because you did mention that most real estate developers are not liquid. They can't just write a $500 million check. I think that is probably true for most billionaires, although I don't certainly have that experience to really know firsthand. But if they have assets, the question is, you kind of said, maybe if he prepared, he would start to sell things off. I mean, is that a real possibility that he might have to do that?
I genuinely think at this point, if he sold off everything, first of all, if he starts selling off stuff he owns, how would that be functionally different from the government just taking it, apart from him getting to choose what gets taken? I also don't think he has $500 million in assets at this point. Like, the extent to which he's leveraged these properties, like for every property he sells off, he's also opening himself up to the problems with him having leveraged those properties, right? He can't because all of his assets are under control by the 14th district. Well, in New York at least, right? But like properties outside of there, he could potentially like sell off, but he's probably leveraged those too. Can you explain what it means to leverage your asset? Basically, like the normal way this would work would be like Donald Trump would say, hey, I have a building that's worth $1 billion. I need money now. How do I get money now? The billion that the building is worth, like, I can't, that's not like cash, and I don't want to sell the building. What do I do? And then what most people in that position would do was they would leverage the worth of that real estate asset or any other asset to get a loan, to get money from another source and to say, hey, listen, okay, I'll pay you back for that loan. Don't worry, okay? Old buddy, old pal, okay, I'm going to get you that money back, all right? And you know how I'm going to pay back this massive loan? Because I'm staking this gigantic, shiny billion-dollar skyscraper on it. That's usually how it works. Donald Trump has been doing that for decades. And he's only been accruing more and more and more debt recently because of all the costs associated with campaigning and legal fees. And now this bond, this massive, massive bond. Add that to the fact that the reason this bond is being issued is because he has overvalued his assets. And I think he's underwater. Yeah, I think he's hosed. The only help here that he can get is from the outside. I don't think there's any magic he could pull with his own assets that would allow him to clear this. it needs to come from somewhere else, you know, and even then there are issues with that.
I will just say that in other circumstances, other matters that I've handled, that is what's happened. Essentially, real estate developers refinance properties, sell properties, do what they have to do to get cash. Now, candidly, I've never been in a case where a real estate developer needed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions. It's only been in the tens of millions, but nonetheless, for those real estate developers, it was a very significant ask, right, to come up with that kind of money.
Yeah.
If you have if your net worth is in the hundreds of millions, and so, but for Donald Trump, nonetheless, he could have anticipated this and sold a property in the midst of the New York Attorney General's proceeding. And I really would say one of two things is true here: either he doesn't have the wealth that he suggests he has, or he didn't plan whatsoever.
Here, I'm looking for stuff on my other monitor here. This is from the Seattle Times, so I'm repping local, I guess. This is about campaign cash, but in the context of Donald Trump having this massive bond to pay, you know. Brian Ballard, a Republican lobbyist, fundraiser, and Mar-a-Lago member, said Trump was incredibly engaged in the political money fight. The Biden campaign has more money than the Trump campaign at the moment, by quite a bit, as I understand it. Trump formed a new joint fundraising account with the National Party and roughly 40 state parties, calling in the Trump 47 committee, allowing him to directly raise money in chunks of more than $800,000. A splashy dinner in Palm Beach is being planned in early April to fill the new account's coffers. Early April isn't soon enough. One person familiar with the planning said donors have pledged more than $25 million. Keep in mind, this is campaign money, not Trump paying his bond money. Trump is concerned about the fundraising gap between his orbit and Biden's. Those he told advisors he believes he and his allies will raise what they need. Some top donors remain hesitant. Among their privately expressed concerns is a fear that large donations could wind up covering Trump's legal fees, even as his advisors have publicly said the RNC won't do so. Trump's main super PAC has, as of January, refunded more than $47 million of the $60 million it had received before the 2024 run began to Trump's PAC, which is paying Trump's lawyers. See, this is one of the big weaknesses to the GOP. A huge amount of fundraising money is getting bled into Trump's massive financial liabilities. And a lot of donors don't want to see their money getting used to pay off the debts of a financially incompetent billionaire.
Was so blind to what was occurring that he essentially left himself in a position where now he's going to incur significant costs and hassle and
I try to stay at least a little bit disaffected so that I don't get let down when the big funny doesn't happen. But I really need this to happen, guys. I really, really, really need this to happen. I can't be disaffected with this one, guys. I need this to happen. It's very important to me. When selling a leveraged asset, there's usually an agreement in the contract who's the first to receive the discharged asset, similar to bankruptcy. This likely means he does not have a single asset he could sell. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, for a lot of the leveraging deals that he's made probably include provisions which mean that if he had to sell it, the proceeds of the sale would go instead to the people he's leveraged it to, you know? Very, very possible. Trump killed a resolution earlier this month that would have kept the RNC donations from paying for his legal fees. You're kidding. Trump loyalists have completely infiltrated the RNC. So, like, it looks like they're trying to turn the entire fucking national political apparatus into a fundraising device. They're not going to get many donations if every donor feels like 90% of their money doesn't go to the campaign, but is instead going to pay down the massive legal fees. The RNC failed to earn enough support from states to bring a resolution to ban paying former President Trump's legal bills to a vote. Jeez, that's grim. Oh, man. He only received co-sponsors from 8 out of 10 required states to bring the resolution to a vote. Laura Trump previously said she would spend every single penny of RNC funds to re-elect her father-in-law to the White House. So, Laura Trump, who's been endorsed to serve as the next co-chair of the RNC, a Trump family member being the co-chair of the RNC, Jesus Christ, is saying, yeah, all the money will go to campaigning, but also, you know, let's make it still possible for us to pay down his legal debts. Trump's campaign advisors have said he won't ask the RNC for help with his legal bills, but according to federal elections filings posted in January, the former president's fundraising committee spent nearly $30 million on legal fees in the second half of 2023. Jesus Christ. Bloodbath at the RNC. Trump team slashes staff at committee. Donald Trump's newly installed leadership team at the RNC on Monday began the process of pushing out dozens of officials. More than 60 RNC staffers that work across the political communications and data departments will be let go. Yeah, burn! Burn, baby, burn. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Strip down the afuera RNC campaigning team. Afuera comms team meant to help win the election. Afuera, messaging and advertising for the election. Afuera. Everything will be stripped down so that Donald Trump can pay his legal bills. Oh my God. Those being asked to resign include 5 members of the senior staff. They're pushing out senior staff at the RNC. Guys, these people are like the blood and bones of the ability for the RNC to operate nationally. These are the people who know what they're doing. Some vendor contracts are expected to be cut. In a letter to some political and data staff, Sean Cairncross, the RNC's new chief operating officer, said the new committee leadership was in the process of evaluating the During this process, certain staff are being asked to resign and reapply for a position on the team. They are literally doing the thing. Vosh, isn't this kind of scary, though? Like, RNC staff will be replaced by roving gangs of Mad Max far-right Nazis? No, because the RNC staff are competent. Trump, like, hardcore MAGA Trump people are incompetent. That's the whole thing. The only reason the RNC is powerful is because right now there is a synthesis between the old blood of the RNC, which is procedural, competent neocons, and the new blood, the MAGA group, which is lunatic, deranged, but populist and popular. And you need both of these for the GOP to succeed. If you get rid of the procedural element, if you get rid of the competent people, have you seen how incompetent the MAGA groups are? Like, broadly speaking, they don't even get anything done. Trump got very little done in his term in office. For all the power he had, he mostly just got like a bunch of executive orders put out that were immediately overturned when Biden took into office. Like, he didn't get much done. They're not competent. Fascists aren't competent. Yeah, Trump's lawyers are loyalists and not very competent. If they lose 2024, they lose pretty much forever after. I agree. I don't think that like winning in 2024, winning this year, is the end of fascism or the end of the GOP, but it's definitely the end of Trump's GOP. He's going to be buried in debt. He's going to be washed. It's over. Like, this is it. This is the final hurrah. For Trump, I should say, for Trumpism, because he's just too old and too buried in debt. Obviously, the underlying power systems and other people who are very far right, I mean, that still exists. Trump's campaign took over operational control of the RNC on Monday. And yep, there we go. Laura Trump was elected as co-chair. Outgoing speech from Ronna McDaniel.
It is a little bittersweet to be with all of you here today as I step down as chair after 7 years. We cannot put our head in the sands and ignore abortion and the Dobbs decision. Many of our candidates chose to ignore this issue and not talk about it. And the RNC was a leading issue, urging candidates to talk about this issue head on. Go figure. I'm a suburban mom. I might have some opinions on this issue. I authored a memo in the summer of 2022 highlighting how we win on this issue when voters are faced with a decision between a Republican that supports exceptions and reasonable limitations.
Basically, what she's saying right here is, please don't be a lunatic who advocates for total abortion bans. It's really politically unpopular.
When a baby feels pain, and a Democrat who supports no exceptions, no limits, not even when a baby feels pain. Too many candidates, and specifically their consultants, scoffed at this advice and ended up paying the price on a...
Yeah, well, she's right on that one. Trump's advisors have described the RNC structure as overly bloated and bureaucratic, which they believe has contributed to the party's cash flows. Trump advisors have a better idea for how we should contribute to the party's cash flows. The RNC only had about $8 million at the end of December, about 1/3 as much as the DNC. Under the new structure, the Trump campaign is looking to merge its operations with the RNC. Key departments such as comms, data, and fundraising will effectively be one and the same. Guys, do you understand what this means? This is like kind of unprecedented. The RNC and Trump are literally like fusion highing. There's no longer an RNC and Trump who they're trying to wrangle. It's being ceded entirely to his team. Yeah, the lunatics are taking the wheel. I think this is to our benefit, like massively. It really does seem like the Trump team is a parasite. They're not competent. They're bleeding money, like hundreds of millions of dollars. The amount that Trump is going to need to pay for these legal troubles exceeds the amount he would have been expected to raise in campaigning. I mean, there's so much debt to pay, and they seem interested in just like I think this is just another big grift. He's effectively he's selling off the RNC basically. Like in one final hurdle, one final effort to keep himself out of prison because he wants to die a free man. He might just end up liquidating the entire RNC and turning its entire fundraising apparatus into a way of staying out of prison, staying, keeping his properties. He wants to die with his, he wants to die free and with all of his land, still technically his. This is such good news. I'm so happy right now. Gutting a committee just before the election sounds insane, said a former RNC employee. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It really, really does. Trump and his allies scramble to close fundraising gap with Biden. Concerns have grown among top Republicans and their allies. Trump is spending too much political money on his legal bills. At the end of January, Biden's campaign had $56 million in cash compared to $30.5 million for Trump. The DNC, which is fundraising as part of Biden's campaign, had $24 million in the bank, almost triple held by the RNC. A Washington Post analysis of filings by Biden's campaign and joint fundraising found that they had 172,000 unique donors. So Trump got a big spike in donations when the indictments piled up in August, but Biden has now outpaced him in number of monthly donors, and it's probably only going to go up with time, whereas Trump's is probably going to have spikes but might level otherwise. Also, the DNC is spending a lot less money, like a lot less. Here's the amount of cash on hand per time. Here you have 2020, where you can see that elections are very expensive. But notice how even at the peak of available currency held by the RNC and DNC, it's around 100 million. Donald Trump owes $500 million in a bond. The maximum amount of money that the RNC and DNC had on the eve of the largest election in U.S. history in terms of voter participation had about 1/5 the amount that he needs to pay one bond. I need this to happen so badly. You guys really can't fathom. You have no idea. About 23% of spending by Trump's affiliated committees in 2023 went to legal fees, which are expected to climb this year. Two committees now dedicated largely to paying Trump's legal bills, Save America Leadership PAC and Make America Great Again PAC, spent over $55 million on legal bills in 2023. Save America alone spent about $3 million on legal bills in the first month of 2024. The former president has agreed for more than a year to do 3 to 5 hours a week of call time with donors, stunning some advisors who know he has historically avoided the practice. He regularly writes personal letters to donors, signs thank you notes, and sends hats to those he speaks with. Oh my God. He's so desperate. Holy shit. He's doing fucking outreach himself. The Biden campaign is taken to mocking Trump's money struggles. Hell yeah. Taking one out of the old Vaushite playbook. Maybe you should manage your finances better. Hey, let's go. Biden really said Trump's a broke boy, Poor couldn't be me. Yeah, Kowalski, I don't really know how they get out of this without either a very favorable ruling from the appeals court with regard, or like holding off on the bond payment, which I don't even know the extent to which they could do that or for how long they could do that. Or somebody has to literally just drop a bunch of gold bars on Trump and just give him the money, like flat out, whatever he ends up doing, I'm not really sure. Is this a good sign for the November election? Yes. Can the RNC file for bankruptcy? Is that a thing for them? No, not really. I mean, I guess they could, but that's not really on the table here. The RNC hasn't taken on debt. They're just spending the money that they're fundraising on Trump. Biden pardon incoming? Yeah, that's true. In order to help the nation heal, Biden is going to pardon Trump in these trying times. No, I don't actually believe that. I shouldn't say that. There are Twitter lefties who unironically think that's going to happen. I remember that after Trump first got slapped with some of these court cases, that there were some Twitter lefties being like, Biden will pardon him or whatever. Like, why would that happen? Couldn't Jared Kushner pay it with the billions that he got from the Saudis? There are complications with that. Also, keep in mind, when people get billions, those billions aren't in liquid currency. Those billions are usually tied up in deals, debts, or assets. For example, if you give Jared Kushner, say, just off the dome, $2 billion worth of stock or their shares or whatever in a given company, or like a part of an asset or whatever, him selling part of that off for liquid currency might not even be possible. For very large amounts of money, it's entirely possible that any big sale like that, like, it can't even be done just to get money. It's like a whole legal thing. There can be provisions that prevent you from selling it, Generally speaking, the more money you need to move, the harder it is to move in liquid form. That's the reason why there are people in America who have tens or hundreds of billions of dollars, but the DNC and RNC are operating with hundreds of millions, because oftentimes the amount of money that people has is just a abstract representation of their ownership of a variety of assets, Like Elon Musk has a lot of money because he owns Tesla, but Elon Musk can't just liquidate Tesla in order to get the cash to do a lot of the stuff that you would need to do otherwise. It's one of the reasons why he took on debt when he bought Twitter, even though he theoretically had the money in non-liquid form. The Saudis didn't give Jared just $2 billion, like literally in cash, like in briefcases or whatever, if in deals and assets and so on. So you're saying all money above 100 million is basically just fake? All money is fake, but money that isn't held directly in your hand in bill form is super double fake. Okay, that's my position on this. This Trump guy always finding his way into the news headlines. I swear to God. Just nice to have some good news for once. If you're watching the stream and enjoying it, by the way, if you're not subscribed, I strongly recommend you do so. There is an ancient Egyptian curse that does harm people who watch my videos without subscribing. I can't do anything about it, honestly. It follows me. It's hurt a lot of people, and it could hurt you too. So just, return the sub. Yeah. Remember how last stream we talked about Donald Trump and his money troubles? Remember that? You remember, right? Right? Trump GoFundMe raised 1.4 million already. That's nothing. That's nothing. Stand with Trump, fund the 355 million unjust settlement. That's not even all the money that he owes. That is absolutely nothing. The top donation is 10,000. No. Wow, Trump is poor. Trump is very poor. In fact, Trump might actually be the poorest president in the history of America. And I'm not joking, because when you evaluate a person's net worth, you subtract their debt from their assets. And my man has some debts. Trump says he'd have to hold fire sale of properties to meet 464 million bond. While protesting the unjustness of the order to pay this $500 million bond, Trump's lawyers said that while the Trump organization's properties are in a relatively high state of liquidity, they would not be able to meet this bond, even if they were to start employing that liquidity. Essentially, an admission from Donald Trump's lawyers that, yeah, man, even if we started melting all that shit down, like, it's not happening, basically. Here, I would be forced to, this is from Trump, I would be forced to mortgage or sell, quote, great assets, perhaps at fire sale prices, and if and when I win the appeal, they would be gone. Does that make sense? Witch hunt, election interference, Trump added. So if you have any, like, Trump organization properties nearby, I strongly suggest camping out there. Just get a tent. Who knows, right? They cited difficulties finding a Treasury Department-approved surety company willing to underwrite a bond at such a high level. They noted many of the approved companies have internal policies against issuing bonds of more than 100 million. Trump's legal team also said part of the issue is that the former president cannot put up property for collateral as part of the bond. While it is my understanding the Trump organization is in a strong liquidity position, it does not have $1 billion in cash or cash equivalents, the lawyers wrote, adding, as a result, for a company such as the Trump organization, which has most of its assets invested in real estate, obtaining a bond for $464 million is a practical impossibility. Trump is appealing the decision, but must put up the bond in order to have his appeal go forward. Ooh, guys, Donald Trump, like, I know we've been in a lot of, like, old Donnie Trump isn't going to be able to get his way out of this one than he does kind of situations before. All I'm saying is that, like, he actually needs to deal with this right now. This is like a right now thing. I wish I wasn't so tired I could, like, play up how important it is more. It is really important. There is a silver lining for Trump in this situation. The bright side, it looks like he won't be impacted by President Biden's proposed billionaires tax. Yeah, it's true. Under Biden's woke welfare programs that give alms to the poor, he might actually benefit just as much as, the rest of us. He really, really needs gold bars. He has until March 25th. Is that the cutoff point? Yeah, there we go. Trump faces March 25 deadline to post bond for 120% of verdict. Ex-president court filing said he doesn't have enough cash. Will he go to prison if he can't make bond? The former president challenged the verdict, but he still faces a March 25th deadline to post a bond covering 120% of the judgment while he appeals. In a March 18 court filing, said 30 companies arranged such bonds have declined as collateral. He doesn't have enough cash. He wouldn't go to jail. I think they would just start melting all of his properties down for scrap. Like, at that point, the government starts repossessing his stuff. Like, they would go over to, like, Trump Tower and stuff, and they would just, like, march out with a bunch of chairs. They would take his gold toilet. You're going to see a bunch of, like, union workers, in coveralls marching out, like, carrying little bits of this, There's going to be some guy with, like, a scalpel cutting off the painting on the ceiling, and marching out with it rolled up under his arm. They got the green light to take out-of-state shit. They could take Mar-a-Lago. Oh my God, I want them to take Mar-a-Lago. I want to see 50,000 different camera angles of every news crew in the country filming Trump standing around helplessly as a bunch of like blue-collar union guys are carrying out the furniture. Please, I need this so bad. I need it more than anything ever in my entire life. Oh my God, it's at the bottom of fucking Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I need it. Everyone pray, everyone manifest it. For real, is he almost about to straight up go to jail? No, this is all financial stuff. You don't typically send people to debtor's prison. We try not to do that, even though we definitely do that. What if they take Mar-a-Lago? He has more documents he's hiding. Yeah, the union rep guys just carrying out a bunch of nuclear codes in little envelopes. What happens if Trump doesn't post the bond? New York Attorney General Letitia James, a Democrat who brought the fraud suit against Trump, is likely to take immediate legal action to seize assets, but such a process would likely trigger another courtroom battle, meaning it could take months or longer for her to satisfy the judgment. No! The process would nevertheless put Trump's properties at risk of being taken from his Manhattan-based Trump organization. Why does everything take so long to do? Just once, can we please speed up the process and be faster, okay? I told you this is a stall effort. Well, in this case, this is just like the normal delaying process, I think. There is good news, though. Even if his stuff doesn't end up getting repossessed, the real good that is a product of all this, like the real good that's being done, is the fact that Trump is gutting the GOP and turning its fundraising processes towards him. Remember, big donors are hesitant about donating to the GOP because they feel like it'll just go straight to Trump, which Trump denies, but then they also shut down a provision that would have stopped the GOP from funneling money over to Trump. It seems like even if he doesn't get all of his shit repoed, which I still really, really want, a lot of money is going to be siphoned away from the GOP for this. Biden has a lot more money on hand right now, so could Trump use bankruptcy to escape this? Please file bankruptcy. Do you have any idea how funny that would be? Trump's wealth is mostly tied up in real estate. No, this is the whole goddamn thing. The whole reason that Donald Trump is paying this money, this bond, is because he lied about the value of his real estate. Why would you then list the value of his real estate at these amounts? Mar-a-Lago is not worth $240 million. That was the whole point. The whole you're basically saying, like, here are the debts that he's incurred for committing fraud by lying against the value of his properties, and these are the values of the properties as like listed by Donald Trump. You know? Yeah, exactly. Going bankrupt would destroy everything because he has so many liabilities and so many, it's such a big house of cards. Trump has already filed for bankruptcy 4 times in the past. Yeah, but that wasn't now. This is different. Liz Cheney says Trump is probably going to siphon money from the RNC. Is it just a coincidence Donald Trump took over the RNC, fired most of its Republican staff, then installed his daughter-in-law as co-chair at the same time he's become desperate for money and can't post bond? Donors better beware. Yep. Though remember, the maximum amount of money that the GOP had back at the height of the 2020 election was about 1/4 of what Donald Trump owes in this bond. So even if he funneled all of the money the RNC possibly could. Look, all I'm saying, Bavash, have you considered nothing ever happens? I'm often considering this, yes. Trump could sell his minority stakes in 2 commercial office buildings, 555 California in San Francisco and 1290 Avenue of the Americas in New York. These are majority owned by Vornado Realty Trust. They're worth an estimated $625 million, would be among the quickest ways for him to raise the cash that he needs. I don't know if that's reliable because I don't think Mar-a-Lago is worth $240 million. That's been contested very heavily. So I don't know if you could fairly say, I guess it's his stake in those and he doesn't own them outright. And there's a pretty big difference between saying it's worth that much and finding a buyer. Have you seen recent shocking polls saying Biden is ahead? Don't listen to these. Don't listen to polls. They were made by the devil to deceive you. In reality, all large statistical information is unknowable. All of it is guesswork, okay? How many white people versus black versus Hispanic versus Asian people are in America? Nobody knows. How many men versus women? Count. How many men are in the room with you right now? For me, it's just one, me. How many women? 0. All I know is that there's 1 man and 0 women in this room. That's my polling data, okay? Don't trust the lies of the devil people, the statisticians, okay? We only listen to them when the surveys are provided by Soaked on Left, okay? That's the only time. Be honest, how close to the election are you going to wait before telling everyone to get out? I'm not going to, I'm not pulling a fire alarm on you guys, okay? That's not how it works.